The massive colony ship New Frontier drifted through the empty space between stars, carrying 50,000 humans toward their new home. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the distant sun grow larger each day. They had been traveling for 8 months, and the colonists were eager to start their new lives on the planet they would call Haven. Jake had served in the Earth Defense Force for 20 years before accepting command of this mission. He was a tall man with graying hair and tired eyes that had seen too much war. The colony ship was his responsibility now, along with all the families sleeping in the passenger sections and dreaming of their future. Captain Lisa Brooks commanded the escort frigate Liberty's Edge, one of 3 warships protecting the colony. Vessel, she was younger than Jake, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. Her ship was small but fast, armed with the latest human weapons and staffed by experienced crew members who had volunteered for this dangerous mission. Dr. Sam Carter worked in the science labs deep inside the colony ship. He was a thin man with messy black hair who spent most of his time studying alien technology that Earth had recovered from crashed ships over the years. Sam knew more about alien science than almost anyone, but he had never seen a living alien. Before the warning came at 0800 hours on a Tuesday morning. The ship's sensors detected 12 large vessels approaching from the direction of the nearest star system. The ships were unlike anything in human databases, with crystalline hulls that seemed to glow with their own light. They moved in perfect formation, their weapons already powered and ready. Jake called his senior staff to the bridge immediately. Lisa arrived first, her uniform crisp despite having been woken from sleep. Sam came running from his lab, still wearing his work clothes, and carrying a tablet full of sensor readings. Colonel Ryan Hayes, the military commander, arrived last but moved with the steady confidence of a soldier who had seen combat. "Report," Jake said, his voice calm despite the tension in the room. 12 alien vessels, each one twice the size of our biggest escort ship, Lisa reported. They're armed with weapons we don't recognize, and their hull materials are completely unknown. They've been scanning us for the past 10 minutes. Sam looked at his tablet and shook his head. The energy signatures are incredible. Each of their ships produces more power than our entire fleet combined. I've never seen technology like this. Colonel Hayes studied the tactical display. They're not trying to hide. They want us to know they're here and that they have us outgunned. This is either a greeting or a threat? The answer came 30 minutes later when a communication signal reached the human fleet. The aliens had learned human language somehow, and their message was clear and simple. "Attention, primitive vessel. You have entered the territory of the Zephyrian Collective. I am High Commander Vexthari of the Enforcement Fleet. Your species is unknown to us, but your vessel carries valuable cargo and workers. You will surrender half of your population for labor assignments. The remainder will be permitted to establish a small settlement under our protection. You have 72 hours to comply." The bridge fell silent. Jake looked at the faces of his officers and saw the same mixture of anger and fear that he felt. 50,000 people had left Earth to build a new life, not to become slaves to an alien empire. "Are there any other options mentioned in their message?" Jake asked. Lisa checked the communication logs. "They say that failure to comply will result in the destruction of our fleet and the seizure of all survivors. They seem to think this is a generous offer." Dr. Carter was studying the alien transmission with growing excitement. "Admiral, they're broadcasting on multiple frequencies. I can analyze their technology from the signal patterns. Give me a few hours and I might be able to learn how their systems work." Colonel Hayes was already planning for the worst. "Sir, we need to prepare for combat. I don't care how advanced they are. We're not handing over 25,000 people to be slaves." Jake nodded slowly. "Agreed. But we need to be smart about this. Lisa, take your ship and scout their fleet. Stay out of weapons range, but get us detailed scans. Sam, analyze everything you can about their technology. Ryan, start preparing our defenses." The next few hours passed quickly. Lisa's ship moved carefully around the alien fleet, recording every detail. The Zephyrian vessels were beautiful in their own way, like massive crystals floating in space. But their beauty hid deadly weapons that could destroy the human fleet in minutes. Sam worked without rest, studying the alien signals and comparing them to everything he knew about advanced technology. The Zephyrians used energy weapons exclusively, and their ships were powered by something that produced incredible amounts of energy. But there were patterns in their technology that suggested they had not changed their designs in a very long time. Colonel Hayes gathered his officers and began planning for a battle that seemed impossible to win. The human fleet had 3 escort ships and 1 colony vessel. The aliens had 12 warships, each one more powerful than anything humans had ever built. But Ryan had fought impossible battles before, and he knew that sometimes the impossible was just very difficult. As the deadline approached, Jake made a decision that would change everything. The colonists had not come this far to surrender without a fight. The human fleet would resist, no matter the cost. The Zephyrians watched the human ships with growing confidence. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever successfully resisted their demands. The humans appeared to be powering down their weapons and preparing to surrender. Their ships drifted helplessly in space, no longer even trying to maintain formation. High Commander Vextari allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. These humans were like all the others, quick to submit when faced with superior force. The collective would have new workers, and the humans would learn their place in the galaxy, but something was wrong. The human ships were not broadcasting surrender messages. Instead, they seemed to be waiting for something. Their energy signatures were dropping, as if they were shutting down all non-essential systems. Perhaps they are afraid, suggested Sub-Commander Krital. Many species become paralyzed when they first encounter our power. Vextari nodded. Primitive species often react this way. We will wait for their surrender message. Aboard the New Frontier, Jake stood with his officers on the bridge, watching the alien fleet hold its position. The 72 hours were almost up, and the Zephyrians would soon learn that humans did not surrender easily. All ships report ready, Lisa said from her position on the Liberty's edge. Weapons are charged and waiting. Defensive positions are prepared, Colonel Hayes added. The colonists are secured in protected areas. Dr. Carter looked up from his work with a grim smile. I've learned some very interesting things about their technology, Admiral. They might be in for a surprise. Jake took a deep breath and activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. In 5 minutes, we show these aliens what happens when they threaten human families. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone back on Earth who will follow us to the stars. The human fleet began to move, slowly at first, then with growing speed and purpose. The Zephyrians had made their first mistake by assuming that the humans were helpless. They were about to learn that humanity had not reached the stars by being weak. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. The 72 hours ended with silence. High Commander Vextari waited for the human surrender message that never came. Instead, the primitive vessels continued to drift in space, their energy signatures so low they appeared to be dead ships. Perhaps their communication systems have failed, suggested Sub-Commander Kretel. Many species suffer equipment failures when faced with our superior technology. Vextari studied the tactical display. The human ships showed no signs of life. Except for basic life support systems, their weapons were offline, their shields were down, and their engines were barely running. It was exactly what he expected from a defeated enemy. Begin the capture operation, he ordered. Use minimum force. We want the ships intact and the humans alive for questioning? The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation. Their crystalline hulls glowed brighter as they charged their weapons. The plan was simple and had worked hundreds of times before. Disable the enemy ships with energy weapons, board them, and take control. The humans would wake up as prisoners. Of the collective aboard the Liberty's edge, Captain Lisa Brooks watched the alien ships approach. Her crew was ready, their hands steady on weapons that had been powered down to avoid detection. The ship looked dead from the outside, But inside, every system was prepared for combat. "They're charging weapons," reported Lieutenant Kevin Stone from the sensor station. "All 12 ships are targeting us and the other escorts?" Lisa nodded. Calmly, "Let them come closer. We need them to commit to this attack pattern." On the new frontier, Admiral Jake Morrison stood with Dr. Sam Carter in the main engineering section. The colony ship's massive hull was filled with equipment that the Zephyrians had not detected. Hidden weapon systems, defensive shields, and, most importantly, the energy absorption arrays that Sam had built using salvaged alien technology. "The energy collectors are ready," Sam reported. "When their weapons hit us, we'll absorb about 60% of the power and redirect it to our own systems." Jake smiled grimly. 300 years of using the same tactics. They never learned to adapt. The first Zephyrian attack came exactly as expected. 12 energy beams struck the human ships, designed to overload their electrical systems and leave them helpless. The aliens had calculated the exact amount of power needed to disable the primitive vessels without destroying them. What happened next had never occurred in 3 centuries of Zephyrian conquest. The human ships, instead of going dark, suddenly blazed with power. The energy from the alien weapons was absorbed by hidden collectors and fed directly into human weapon systems. The Liberty's Edge, which had appeared dead moments before, came alive with the fury of a predator. Captain Brooks felt her ship surge with power as the alien energy filled their batteries. "All stations, this is the captain. Light them up." The Liberty's Edge fired its first salvo while the Zephyrians were still trying to understand what had happened. Human kinetic weapons, primitive by galactic standards, tore through alien shields that had been designed to stop energy attacks. Tungsten projectiles, accelerated to incredible speeds, struck the crystalline hulls like hammers hitting glass. The Zephyrian ship, Crystal Dawn, exploded in a shower of sparkling debris. Its hull, beautiful and strong against energy weapons, shattered, completely under the impact of solid projectiles moving at tremendous speed. "Impossible," whispered Subcommander Criddle as he watched his ship's sensors. "Their weapons are primitive. They should not be able to penetrate our shields." But the humans were just getting started. Commander Alex Turner, captain of the destroyer Defiant, brought his ship around in a tight turn that would have been impossible for the larger Zephyrian vessels. His crew had trained for years in high-speed combat, and they used every advantage their smaller, more agile ship provided. The Defiant's weapons fired continuously, sending streams of projectiles into the alien formation. 2 more Zephyrian ships took heavy damage as their shields failed under the unexpected assault. The aliens tried to return fire, but the human ships were moving too fast and changing direction too quickly. Admiral Morrison watched the battle from the New Frontiers bridge, coordinating the human response. The colony ship was not defenseless either. Hidden in its cargo bays were 30 fighter craft, small and fast ships that had been disguised as civilian shuttles. "Launch all fighters," Jake ordered. "Show them what Earth pilots can do." Lieutenant Karen Walsh led the first fighter squadron out of the New Frontiers launch bay. Her small ship accelerated rapidly, much faster than the Zephyrians had expected. The aliens had never faced fighter craft before, and their massive ships were not designed for combat against such small, fast targets. Karen's squadron attacked like a swarm of angry insects, too small and fast for the Zephyrian weapons to track effectively. The fighters carried small but effective missiles, and they knew exactly where to hit the alien ships for maximum damage. The battle that the Zephyrians had expected to last minutes stretched into hours. Their superior technology meant nothing against human tactics they had never encountered. The aliens tried to adapt, but 3 centuries of easy victories had made them slow to change. High Commander Vextari watched in growing horror as his fleet was torn apart by primitive weapons and impossible tactics. Half of his ships were destroyed or damaged, and the humans showed no signs of stopping their attack. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. "Our weapons are superior, our shields are stronger, our ships are more powerful." Sub-Commander Creedle studied the battle data with growing understanding. "Commander, they are using our own energy against us. When we fire at their ships, they absorb the power and use it to charge their weapons. And their projectile weapons are designed specifically to defeat energy shields. The truth was becoming clear. The humans had not just stumbled upon effective tactics. They had studied Zephyrian technology and designed their entire combat strategy around defeating it. This was not a desperate last stand by a primitive species. This was a carefully planned ambush. Dr. Carter's voice came over the communication system to all human ships. Analysis complete. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern. I'm sending the frequency data to all ships. Time your shots to match the shield rotation. With this information, the human weapons became even more effective. The remaining Zephyria ships found their shields failing completely as the humans matched their firing patterns to the shield frequencies. Commander Turner's ship, the Defiant, closed with the Zephyrian flagship. The alien vessel was massive, 10 times the size of the human destroyer, but size meant nothing if the enemy could not hit you. This is for threatening our families, Turner said as he fired his main weapons directly into the flagship's engines. The Zephyrian command ship lost power and began to drift. Without engines, it was helpless against the human fighters that swarmed around it like angry bees. High Commander Vexthari realized that his fleet was beaten. In less than 4 hours, the humans had destroyed 8 of his 12 ships and damaged the others beyond repair. His grand fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was being destroyed by a single human colony. All ships, retreat to Kepler Station, he ordered. We must regroup and call for reinforcements. The surviving Zephyrian ships limped away from the battle, their crystalline hulls scarred and broken. They had learned a painful lesson about underestimating primitive species, but the cost had been terrible. Admiral Morrison watched the alien ships flee and felt no satisfaction in the victory. This was just the beginning. The Zephyrians would return with more ships and better preparation. The real war was about to start. All ships damage report, he ordered. We need to be ready for their next attack. The humans had won their first battle, but they knew the aliens would not make the same mistakes twice. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was not just another species to be conquered. The surviving Zephyrian ships limped back to Kepler Station, their crystalline hulls cracked and blackened from the battle. The massive orbital platform had been the center of Zephyrian power in this sector for over 2 centuries. Nothing had ever challenged their control here, and the station's defenses had grown soft from centuries of peace. High Commander Vexthari stood in the command center, staring at the battle reports that made no sense. His enforcement fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, had been destroyed by a single human colony ship and 3 small escorts. The numbers were impossible, but the wreckage floating in space told the truth. Send a message to the High Council, he ordered. Tell them we have encountered a new species that possesses unknown military technology. Request immediate reinforcement with the Grand Fleet. Sub-Commander Criddle hesitated. Sir, the High Council will not believe that primitives from a single world could defeat our enforcement fleet. They may blame us for incompetence. Vexthari turned to face his subordinate, his crystalline features reflecting his anger. Then show them the recordings. Show them how their energy weapons turned our own power against us. Show them how their primitive projectiles cut through our shields like they were not there. The High Council needs to understand what we are facing. Meanwhile, the human fleet had reached the planet they intended to colonize. Haven was a world that most galactic species would consider uninhabitable. The gravity was 50% higher than Earth normal. The atmosphere contained gases that were toxic to most life forms, and violent storms regularly swept across the continents. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the new frontier, watching the planet grow larger on the screen. To human eyes, Haven looked like home. The high gravity would make them stronger, the harsh atmosphere would keep unwanted visitors away, and the storms would provide cover for their defensive preparations. Begin landing operations, he ordered. We have maybe 3 weeks before they come back with reinforcements. Colonel Ryan Hayes coordinated the most rapid military deployment in human history. 50,000 colonists became the foundation of a fortress world in a matter of days. Construction crews worked around the clock to build defensive positions, while engineers surveyed the planet for strategic resources. The colonists were not ordinary settlers. Every person on the new frontier had been selected for their skills and their ability to survive in harsh conditions. There were soldiers, engineers, scientists, doctors, and farmers, but each one was also trained in basic military tactics. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez led the construction of orbital defense platforms using materials from the local asteroid belt. His crews worked in conditions that would kill most galactic species, welding steel beams in the vacuum of space while dodging radiation from the local star. "The platforms will be ready in 2 weeks," Tony reported to Admiral Morrison. "Each one will mount weapons salvaged from the Zephyrian ships we destroyed, along with our own kinetic systems." Dr. Sam Carter had set up his laboratory in a cave system that provided natural protection from orbital bombardment. He worked with a team of scientists to reverse engineer the alien technology they had captured. What they discovered was both encouraging and terrifying. "The Zephyrians have been using the same technology for centuries," Sam explained to the senior staff. "Their weapons, their shields, their engines, everything is based on designs that have not changed in 300 years. They have become dependent on their technological superiority." Captain Lisa Brooks, now promoted to Commodore, commanded the expanded human fleet. In addition to the original 3 escort ships, they now had 5 vessels built from salvaged Zephyrian technology and human innovation. The hybrid ships were faster and more maneuverable than anything the aliens had ever faced. "The problem is numbers," Lisa reported. "Our intelligence suggests they have over 200 ships in their grand fleet. We can outfight them ship for ship, but we cannot outfight them 200 to 8. The answer came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Corinne Walsh, who had led the fighter attack in the first battle, proposed a solution that would change everything. "We do not fight them in space," she suggested. "We make them come to us. We turn this entire planet into a weapon." The plan was ambitious and dangerous. Instead of meeting the Zephyrian Grand Fleet in open space, the humans would allow them to reach Haven and then use the planet's hostile environment as their primary defensive weapon. Work began immediately on the most extensive planetary defense system ever attempted. The humans built their installations inside the planet's most dangerous regions, places where the gravity was crushing and the atmosphere was poisonous. They used the planet's violent weather patterns to hide their weapons and supply depots. Meanwhile, the Zephyrian High Council received Vexthari's report with disbelief and anger. Supreme Commander Zexthani, leader of the collective, studied the battle recordings with growing fury. "This is impossible," he declared. "No primitive species has ever successfully resisted our forces. These humans must have received help from another galactic power." The investigation that followed revealed the truth. The humans had developed their technology independently, using salvaged alien materials and their own scientific knowledge. They had not been helped by any known galactic civilization. They were genuinely primitive by galactic standards, yet they had defeated a Zephyrian enforcement fleet. "Assemble the Grand Fleet," Zexthani ordered. "We will show the galaxy what happens to species that defy the collective. These humans will be made an example that will be remembered for centuries." The Grand Fleet was the pride of the Zephyrian collective. 200 warships, each one more powerful than the vessels that had been destroyed at Haven. The fleet had conquered entire star systems and had never been defeated in battle, but as the Grand Fleet prepared for departure, disturbing reports began to arrive from across Zephyrian space. Species that had been conquered centuries ago were beginning to rebel. The news of the human victory had spread, and suddenly the collective subjects were remembering that their masters could be defeated on Haven. The human preparations continued at a frantic pace. The colonists had transformed their new world into a fortress that would have impressed the military planners back on Earth. Every mountain contained hidden weapons. Every valley concealed supply depots, and every storm system hid defensive positions. Dr. Carter made a discovery that changed everything. While studying the captured Zephyrian technology, he found something that the aliens had never realized about their own weapons. Their energy weapons work by exciting the molecular structure of the target, he explained to Admiral Morrison. But if we can create a field that absorbs and redirects that energy, we can turn their entire fleet into a power source for our own defenses. The construction of the planetary energy collection system began immediately. Massive crystalline arrays, built using reverse-engineered alien technology, were installed across the planet's surface. When the Zephyrian fleet arrived, their own weapons would power the human defense systems. As the deadline approached, the humans received an unexpected message. It came from the Corellian Republic, a species that had been conquered by the Zephyrians 50 years earlier. "We have been watching your resistance with great interest," the message said. "If you can defeat the Grand Fleet, we will join your rebellion. Dozens of species are waiting to see if the collective can truly be defeated." Admiral Morrison realized that the stakes had just become much higher. This was no longer just about protecting a single human colony. This was about the future of freedom in the galaxy. The Grand Fleet arrived at the edge of the Haven system exactly 3 weeks after the first battle. 200 Zephyrian warships, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the light of the local star, advanced toward the human world with the confidence of inevitable victory. They were about to learn that humans had spent millions of years learning to survive on worlds that actively tried to kill them. Compared to that, war was just another problem to solve. The Grand Fleet of the Zephyrian Collective arrived at Haven with overwhelming force. 200 crystalline warships took position around the planet, their weapons charged and ready. Supreme Commander Zex Thani stood on the bridge of his flagship, confident that this primitive world would fall within hours. "Begin orbital bombardment," he ordered. "Use the planet killers. We will glass this world and show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us." The massive energy weapons fired from orbit, sending beams of pure destruction toward the planet's surface. Each beam carried enough power to destroy a city, and the Zephyrians had fired 50 of them at once. The humans below should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The energy beams struck the planet and simply disappeared. Massive crystalline arrays on the surface absorbed the deadly energy and channeled it into underground storage systems. The planet killers that should have destroyed Haven were instead feeding power to the human defenses. "Impossible," whispered Sub-Commander Criddle. "They are using our own weapons to power their defenses." Dr. Sam Carter monitored the energy collection systems from his underground laboratory. The alien bombardment was providing more power than he had ever dreamed possible. Every weapon the Zephyrians fired made the human defenses stronger. "Energy collection at 200% of capacity," he reported to Admiral Morrison. "We have enough power to run our entire defense grid for a month." The first phase of the Zephyrian attack had failed completely. Supreme Commander Zex Thani stared at the readings in disbelief. His most powerful weapons were not only failing to damage the planet, they were somehow making it stronger. "Send in the assault troops," he ordered. "We will take this world by force." The Zephyrian ground assault began with the deployment of atmospheric processors, designed to make the planet suitable for their troops. The machines descended from orbit, ready to transform Haven's poisonous atmosphere into something breathable for the invading army. The processors exploded the moment they entered the planet's atmosphere. The humans had filled the air with microscopic particles that reacted violently with Zephyrian technology. The alien machines, designed for normal planetary atmospheres, could not function in the toxic environment that humans called home. Colonel Ryan Hayes watched the invasion fleet approach from his command post deep inside a mountain. The facility was built into solid rock, protected by layers of armor that could withstand direct orbital bombardment. Around him, human soldiers prepared for the fight of their lives. "They're landing in Sector 7, reported Major Jennifer Cross. "Estimate 5,000 troops in the first wave." Ryan smiled grimly. Sector 7 was one of the most dangerous areas on the planet. The gravity there was 60% higher than Earth normal. The atmosphere contained acid clouds that could dissolve most materials, and the temperature regularly dropped to levels that would freeze most life forms solid. The Zephyrian troops landed in their environmental suits, protected from the hostile atmosphere by advanced technology. They expected to find human settlements that they could capture quickly. Instead, they found empty wastelands swept by storms that their equipment could barely withstand. Sergeant Mike Johnson led the first human response team. His soldiers moved through the acid storms without protection. Their bodies adapted to conditions that would kill most galactic species. They struck from the poisonous clouds, attacking alien troops who could barely see through their helmet visors. "Contact front," Mike reported over the radio. "Enemy troops moving in formation. They are slow and clumsy in this environment." The human soldiers had trained for years in conditions exactly like this. They moved quickly through terrain that slowed the alien troops to a crawl. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to appear from nowhere, strike with devastating effect, and disappear back into the hostile environment. The alien environmental suits, designed for normal planetary conditions, began to fail in the extreme environment. Acid rain ate through their protective systems. Crushing gravity strained their equipment, and the constant storms interfered with their communications. Lieutenant Karen Walsh led fighter squadrons that took off from hidden bases, carved into mountainsides. Her pilots flew through storms that grounded the alien aircraft, attacking from weather patterns that provided perfect cover. The Zephyrian air support, crucial to their ground assault, was neutralized by the planet's own atmosphere. "Enemy air units are falling back," she reported. "Their pilots cannot handle the wind conditions." Supreme Commander Zex Thani watched his ground assault dissolve into chaos. His troops, equipped with the best technology the collective could provide, were being destroyed by primitives who seemed to thrive in conditions that would kill most galactic species. "How are they surviving down there?" he demanded. "The atmosphere is toxic, the gravity is crushing, and the storms are strong enough to tear apart our equipment." The answer came from captured human prisoners, though the Zephyrians found it hard to believe. The humans had evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill them. Every day of their existence was a battle against hostile conditions that would defeat most spacefaring species. Dr. Carter coordinated the planetary defense from his underground laboratory. The energy collected from the alien bombardment powered weapon systems that struck back at the orbital fleet. Massive railguns, hidden in mountain ranges, fired projectiles that could penetrate the hulls of Zephyrian warships. "Direct hit on enemy cruiser," reported one of his technicians. "Their shields cannot stop our kinetic weapons." The battle for Haven had become a nightmare for the Zephyrian forces. Every advantage they thought they had was turned against them. Their superior technology failed in the hostile environment. Their overwhelming numbers meant nothing when they could not move effectively, and their orbital bombardment was feeding power to the human defenses. Major Cross led guerrilla operations that picked apart the alien landing forces piece by piece. Human soldiers struck from acid clouds, attacked through gravity wells that crushed alien equipment, and used the planet's own weather systems as weapons. "Enemy forces are requesting evacuation," she reported. They cannot maintain their positions in this environment. But the Zephyrians had one final card to play. Supreme Commander Zex Thani ordered the deployment of their most advanced weapon, a device that could destabilize a planet's core and cause it to explode. If they could not conquer Haven, they would destroy it completely. The core destabilizer descended toward the planet, protected by the most advanced shields the collective had ever developed. It should have been impossible to stop, but the humans had one more surprise waiting. Admiral Morrison activated the final phase of their defense plan. The energy collected from the alien bombardment was channeled into a single massive weapon system built into the planet's core. The device used the planet's own magnetic field as a weapon, creating an electromagnetic pulse that could disable any electronic system. The pulse struck the core destabilizer just as it reached the planet's surface. The advanced alien weapon, dependent on sophisticated electronics, died instantly. It crashed into the planet's surface as nothing more than expensive scrap metal. The Zephyrian Grand Fleet, which had arrived with the confidence of inevitable victory, found itself facing an enemy that turned every advantage against them. The humans had not just survived the orbital bombardment, they had used it to power their own weapons. The alien ground forces were being destroyed by the planet's own environment, and now their ultimate weapon had been neutralized. Supreme Commander Zexthani realized that his forces were not fighting a primitive species on a normal world. They were fighting the survivors of a death world, beings who had conquered their own hostile planet and learned to use its dangers as weapons. The Grand Fleet began to retreat, but the humans were not finished. The energy they had collected from the alien bombardment powered one final surprise that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The final blow came not from weapons or explosions, but from a simple realization. Supreme Commander Zexthani stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching his Grand Fleet retreat from Haven in complete defeat. 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy had been destroyed or damaged by a single human colony and their impossible planet. "Signal the human fleet," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. "Request terms for surrender." Sub-Commander Creedle stared at his commander in shock. "Sir, the High Council will never accept surrender to primitives." Zexthani turned to face his subordinate, his crystalline features reflecting the light from burning ships on the tactical display. "The High Council can court-martial me if they wish, but I will not sacrifice more ships and crews to an enemy we cannot defeat." The message reached Admiral Jake Morrison as he stood in the command center, deep beneath Haven's surface. Around him, human officers monitored the retreat of the once mighty Zephyrian fleet. The victory was complete, but Jake felt no celebration. Too many people had died on both sides. "What are their terms?" Jake asked when the alien surrender message arrived. "They are asking for safe passage out of the system," reported Captain Lisa Brooks, now commanding the expanded human fleet. "In exchange, they offer to recognize our claim to this world and agree to non-aggression." Jake considered the offer carefully. The humans had won this battle, but the war could continue if they pushed too hard. The Zephyrian Collective still controlled hundreds of worlds and thousands of ships. This victory had been won through surprise and preparation that could not be repeated. Counteroffer, Jake decided. Safe passage for their remaining ships, but they leave behind all captured alien technology for our study. And they carry a message to their High Council. The message that Jake sent would echo across the galaxy for generations. It was simple and direct, written in language that every species could understand. The humans of Haven Colony do not seek war with the Zephyrian Collective or any other galactic power. We came to the stars seeking peace and new homes for our people, but we will defend ourselves and our families against any threat. The survivors of your Grand Fleet can tell you what happens when Deathworlders are forced to fight. Dr. Sam Carter worked through the night, analyzing the alien technology left behind by the retreating Zephyrians. The advanced systems would accelerate human development by decades, but more importantly, they provided insights into how other galactic civilizations might fight. "Their technology is incredibly advanced," Sam reported to the senior staff, "but it has a fundamental weakness. They have not faced real military opposition in so long that they have forgotten how to adapt. Every system is designed to work perfectly under ideal conditions." Colonel Ryan Hayes coordinated the cleanup operations on Haven's surface. The planet was scarred by the battle, but the human settlements had survived. More importantly, the colonists had proven that they could defend their new home against any threat. "Casualties are lighter than expected," Ryan reported. "The environmental suits protected most of our people from the worst effects of the orbital bombardment, and our defensive positions held against everything they threw at us." The news of the human victory spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Species that had been conquered by the Zephyrians centuries ago suddenly found new hope. If a single human colony could defeat the Grand Fleet, perhaps freedom was possible for everyone. The first to act was the Corellian Republic. which had been enslaved for 50 years. Their message arrived at Haven just days after the battle ended. The Corellian people declare our independence from the Zephyrian Collective, the message announced. We stand with the humans of Haven and offer our support in the struggle for galactic freedom. Similar messages began arriving from across Zephyrian space. The Threnody Confederation, the Eulaxian Federation, and dozens of smaller species all declared their independence. The mighty collective, which had ruled through fear for 3 centuries, suddenly found its empire crumbling. Major Jennifer Cross led the first human diplomatic mission to meet with the rebel species. Her ship, built from captured Zephyrian technology and human innovation, represented a new type of vessel that would become the foundation of human space power. They want to form an alliance, she reported back to Haven. Every species that has declared independence wants to coordinate their efforts with us. Admiral Morrison found himself in a position he had never expected. The military commander of a single colony had become the de facto leader of a galactic rebellion. The responsibility was overwhelming, but the opportunity was incredible. The Zephyrian High Council met in emergency session on their homeworld of Christos Prime. Supreme Commander Zex Thani had been recalled to face judgment for his defeat, but his testimony painted a picture that the Council found hard to accept. These humans are not like any species we have encountered, he told the assembled leaders. They have turned their entire planet into a weapon. Their bodies are adapted to conditions that would kill most galactic species, and they fight with a determination that defies logic. The recordings of the battle spoke for themselves. The Council watched in stunned silence as human soldiers moved through acid storms, as their fighters flew through weather that grounded Zephyrian aircraft, and as their planet absorbed orbital bombardment and used it to power their own defenses. How many other Deathworlds are there? Asked one council member. How many other species like these humans might we encounter? The question had no answer, but it changed everything. The Zephyrian Collective, which had based its power on technological superiority, suddenly faced the possibility that there were species in the galaxy that could not be conquered by conventional means. 6 months after the battle, Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of Haven Station, the first human space station built with alien technology. Below him, the planet that had once been a desperate refuge was now the capital of a growing alliance of free worlds. Captain Brooks commanded a fleet of 30 ships, each one a hybrid of human and alien technology. The vessels represented a new generation of warships that combined the best aspects of both civilizations. The Zephyrians have agreed to formal peace negotiations, she reported. They want to discuss borders and trade agreements. Jake nodded thoughtfully. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity had proven that they could fight and win against superior technology. But now they had to prove that they could build something better than what they had destroyed. Dr. Carter's research had revolutionized human understanding of galactic technology. The combination of alien science and human innovation was producing breakthroughs that surprised even him. We are developing faster-than-light communication systems, he reported. Within a year, we will be able to coordinate with our allies across the entire galaxy in real time. The alliance that had begun with a desperate battle for survival was growing into something that could reshape galactic civilization. Species that had been enslaved for centuries were learning to work together, sharing technology and resources in ways that the Zephyrian Collective had never allowed. As Jake watched ships from a dozen different worlds dock at Haven Station, he reflected on how much had changed. The humans who had left Earth as desperate colonists had become the leaders of a galactic revolution. They had learned that survival on a death world was the best possible preparation for the challenges of space the galaxy would never again underestimate. The species that had conquered fear itself. And somewhere in the dark between the stars, other Deathworlders were taking their first steps toward the light, inspired by the example of a small colony that had refused to surrender.